State Senate. I guess that would be Senatorial District 51. That's what they call it in the great state of Georgia. We have to my right the incumbent, State Senator Steve Gooch, and to my left, challenger, John Williamson. And we're just going to start first. I'll just recap what the rules are again very quickly. Each candidate will get a 2-minute introduction. Moderator, that's me, will pose questions that were provided in advance by the audience. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to respond. And then, even though this is not a debate as such, if one candidate mentions the other in a substantial way, then that person gets a 1-minute response. And then if time allows, which I think it will, each candidate gets another 2 minutes to conclude. So I first call upon State Senator Steve Gooch to introduce himself.
Good evening. I feel like I don't have to do a formal introduction to who I am. I think most of you know me, those that live in Lumpkin County, but for those who are watching on the TV back home, I am Steve Gooch. I'm your state senator for the 51st District. And for those who don't know, that covers a portion of North Forsyth County, the northeast corner of Forsyth County, the entire counties of Dawson, Lumpkin, White, Union, Fannin, Gilmer, and about half of Pickens. So it's roughly 200,000 constituents, depending on what year it is, but that's typically about what we have in all of our Senate districts today. I've been your senator for 6 years. I was elected in 2010. And I have enjoyed representing you at the State Senate under the Gold Dome, working with our state rep, Kevin Tanner. He and I have been friends for a long time. We've worked well together. And I enjoy working with all of our local governments. As you all know, I was a former county commissioner here for 8 years, sole commissioner from 2001 to 2004, and then chairman of the Board of Commissioners from 2005 through 2008. I served for a short time on the Technical College School Board for Georgia. I was appointed by Sonny Perdue, the governor at the time. And then I was elected by the legislature to be on the Department of Transportation Board. And then I was elected into the State Senate in November of 2010. So we've had a lot of good years the last 6 years in the state of Georgia. Our economy is growing again. Our unemployment numbers continue to decrease. Jobs are coming to Georgia, I think, because of some of the policies that we've implemented. And so I look forward to the questions, and again, thank you for having me here and allowing me to represent you in the Senate.
Now, John Williamson for his 2-minute self-introduction.
My name is John Williamson. I've lived in Gilmer County and LJ for 35 years. Been married to my campaign manager for 40 years. I have 6 children, 15 grandchildren. I have a PhD in physics and have spent my career selling medical equipment. I'm now retired. The first question I get, since this is my first shot at running for any public office, is why in the world are you doing it? And are you qualified? Well, let me just read you a political platform. I believe that we must do all we can to avoid increasing taxes on our citizens. I also believe that we should right-size the state government and cut unnecessary spending. Well, it turns out that that was the platform that our senator ran on in 2010. He went unopposed for two more elections, and last year spearheaded the largest tax increase in the state of Georgia. Folks, I felt betrayed. This is exactly what has upset Americans at this election season. They can't trust their politicians. They promise but don't deliver. So that's my reason. But what do I want to do is I want to serve the citizens of the 51st District and the small businesses and the citizens and represent your interests fairly, clearly, and with transparency in the Georgia legislature. Now, Georgia is a great state. We do have our challenges, there are solutions, and I want my children and grandchildren and their children to have a better Georgia thanks to our efforts. So I am running and trying to give you a choice, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess we'll just move on with the first question. And that is, it's a long compound question. What are the most immediate needs of the 51st District, and how can you aid the 51st District in meeting these needs? So, Senator Gooch, if you'd like to go first.
Put this back up in the air a little bit. I think if you're looking at simply the 51st District, that was your question, specifically the 51st District, I think our biggest needs in North Georgia deal with windstream technology and telecommunications. I hear that more than anything else in my district. If you look at all of the complaints that come across our emails, people are frustrated with their internet access and their broadband capacities. That's been the number one complaint. There's not a lot of government solutions in that unless you want to regulate that industry. The internet in Georgia is not regulated, but I think there are things we can do. And here's the thing, the first thing that I've done. First, I brought in the CEO of Windstream from Little Rock, Arkansas. He flew in last year. I invited the chairman of the Board of Commissioners, Lumpkin County, Chris Dockery, who is here tonight. I also invited the Dawson County Commission Chairman, Mike Berg, and the White County Commission Chairman, Travis Turner. We all met in Atlanta with Tony Thomas, the CEO, and he showed us a lot of plans of some things that they were working on to try to improve that technology and the rural broadband up here in North Georgia. I don't think that's enough. And so this year in the Senate, I introduced a resolution that's going to create a joint task force this summer and this fall. The House and the Senate will be joined, and there will be 10 members of this committee. We're going to go around North Georgia and South Georgia and look at rural broadband issues. There's issues all over the state. It's not just here in Dahlonega or North Georgia. It's all over our state, and it's not just Windstream. A lot of other rural counties have the same problem with other carriers. That's one issue. The second issue is rural health care. We have a crisis in our rural health care across the country, especially in Georgia. We have problems in North Georgia and South Georgia, and we're working on that in the General Assembly. We passed one piece of legislation already, and we look forward to doing others. And the last thing, I'll be real brief, manufacturing. We've got to get incentives in place to bring more manufacturing to North Georgia and to rural Georgia.
Thank you. John Williamson for 2 minutes.
Well, as I travel around the district, what I hear most of all is taxes, that the burden of taxes is put on the citizens of the 51st District. That's what I hear, taxes. And you may not understand it if you're at the high level and you're in government and you're really not working for a working job. But let me tell you, when a man tells you that all he can do is, at the best, put $20 away to save every month because of the costs that he bears, that he has to commute and he has to pay gas tax and every other tax, that's when you start to listen and realize that taxation is really hurting the citizens of the 51st District. And this is not only just the working man, but it's also the businesses. I hear the same thing. I hear the government makes more money than I do. So taxation to me is a primary issue that needs to be dealt with. What I would do, the first things that I would do is try to remedy the past taxes that we've been levied. For instance, when we had the Transportation Funding Act, why do we have to pay $5 on our motel, a fee on our motels? This is hurting our tourism industry. And it also is very unfair. I don't know what they do down in Atlanta, how they understand these things, but if you're going to pay $5 on a $50 motel room, which is what typically I stay at, and many of you do too, and many of the people that come up here do, and then the fat cats in Atlanta go to a $300 Marriott or Hilton and they pay $5, that's just not fair. It doesn't make sense. We in the North Georgia area, and talk about a number of the cases, are bearing an unfair burden of taxation in the state of Georgia. So I would like to remedy that, and there are other issues that we can talk about later on in the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, and now the second question is, what are your plans for developing and expanding roads in our district? First, Senator Gooch.
I was hoping to let my opponent answer some of these questions first, but I'll be happy to do it. Without money and without funding, you won't solve these problems. I've got a chart. This is not an EKG graph. This is the retail price of gasoline for the last 72 months. You can see the inconsistencies, ups and down every month. This is how the DOT was being funded. The revenue is up 1 month, down 1 month, up 1 month, down 6 months, up 3 months, down 2 months. You can't run a business like that, and especially when you're trying to contract out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of road work. You can't levy federal funds from the DOT until your money's been spent here on the roads in Georgia. Then you go to the Federal Highway Department and you get reimbursed. We were barely making payroll in our debt service that past administrators, especially the Democrats in Atlanta, had borrowed money to fix some of the roads back in the 80s and the 90s. We're still paying that debt service for 20 or 30 years. We barely have enough money to cover the debt service and the overhead and to leverage our federal monies, where no money's left for local roads and state routes. We have fixed that problem. We created basically a flat tax. Here's the graph. It's basically a flat tax of revenue. We fixed it based on the 4-year average from the time we adopted the law last year. And we now have a steady flow of income. We took money out of the general fund that was called the fourth penny. $200 million came from that. The extra money for the hotel motel tax that John mentioned earlier was from the tourists that are coming into Georgia. That was a target. The Senate version originally was going to put a fee on the lease cars at the Atlanta airport. That didn't happen. It got changed in the conference committee. We now have a steady flow of income that we can take and we can leverage into these counties and cities. The county commissioners in the room can tell you that we've already brought in millions of dollars in the last year and a half. We've got Highway 60 getting resurfaced as we speak. The signs are already put up. $3.2 million for 10 miles of road work on Highway 60. We've got $6 million worth of road work around the town square that's being funded through the state and the feds. And we've already spent $3 million 2 years ago on Highway 19 business and Morrison Moore Parkway. Without a good steady flow of income, you can't budget, you can't plan, and you can't operate the county or the state government. So we've got a plan that's in place and it's working. We're just going to continue to put that plan in place.
Thank you. And John Williamson? Let the senator go a little bit beyond 2 minutes, so if you want to go a little bit beyond 2 minutes.
Would you
I don't think anyone will complain.
repeat?
You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, repeat it.
The question is, what are your plans for developing and expanding roads in our district? And I'll start the clock now.
Well, we've already given the DOT $1 billion. We're going to close to $1 billion, and we argue over what's $1 billion or not. But you read the articles, and I don't think either of us knows how much it's going to collect until it's collected. But we've given the DOT another $800-900 million. So I think that's going to go towards helping our road development. But what we've discovered as we look at all of this and we look at the allocation of the funds for the DOT is that, you know, we have our politicians that come back to Gilmer County and they come with a check and a road project and they take pictures with the photographs and then put it in the paper and they act like, well, we've really done you a favor. We brought your money back to you. And oh, by the way, we have projects in Gilmer County. Now, I can't speak to the rest of them. We have a project in Gilmer County for resurfacing the road that we have presented to the DOT and our senator for years, for 2 years. And it took a petition of 1,000 signatures to get the DOT to actually start the project. And we understand that is underway now, which is very good. I really appreciate that. The other thing that happens is that the DOT, you look at how the DOT is run in some of the projects that they do. We are in Gilmer County, have another highway program. 382 is a highway that comes to a dead end. And they've decided this is a very dangerous place. I don't think there have been any fatalities, but it's a dangerous place. And so the DOT is going to fix that interchange. You know how they're going to fix it? They're going to fix it with the most fabulous roundabout 5 miles south of town in rural Georgia, so that 18-wheelers can pass themselves on a roundabout to fix a road that's probably going to cost us upwards of $20 million. And the question is, do you really need all of this? And that's a question that we need to look at very carefully. Sometimes the projects get put on the burner and just left there and then implemented when you really don't need them. So there are issues that we need to look at in terms of the Department of Transportation and all this money that we're giving them, and where is it coming from?
Okay, and I think
Here's a visual. Here's a visual. This came from the Department of Transportation website. These are the projects that are scheduled to be done in the next 18 months. You probably can't see from here, but up here in the corner, in red, is the 51st District. And if you look at all the projects, very interesting. We're going to get a couple of stoplights. We are going to get a bridge. And we're going to get maybe some road surfacing. But look at that compared to the density of the projects in the rest of the state. Are we getting what we deserve? I leave you with that question.
Senator Gooch was mentioned in that, but he wanted to have a minute to respond because that...
I think I was mentioned about the photo opportunities in Gilmer County.
All right.
I wasn't in a photo opportunity in Gilmer County. I wish I'd have known about it. I would have gone. The fact is, there are $300 million worth of projects that are in Senate District 51. I've got a list of them right here. I'd be happy to share them with you. We've got billions of dollars worth of projects that are needed in this state. Until last year, all they were was ideas on paper. Today, we have a 20-year strategic plan. We have a 5-year state transportation plan that we can now implement and put words into action. So you are going to see trucks on the road. You're going to see C.W. Matthews in Dahlonega this week. They've already put up the construction signs. They're going to remill Highway 60 and resurface it now. It's $3 million. That would not have happened had we not have reformed our Transportation Funding Act last year. It was not scheduled to be done. You all drive up and down that road every day. You tell me, does that road need to be resurfaced? Absolutely it does.
Okay, thank you. And now we have a third question. Again, it's a real crowd pleaser, the exciting topic of fiscal policy. And the people here want to know, fair tax, flat tax, or another plan? So, Senator Gooch, your thoughts?
I'm an advocate for the fair tax. I've worked with Tom Brown and Michael Worley. Y'all know him. Those two gentlemen live here. We've worked together. We've met multiple times. There's a bill in the House. We tried to do it in the Senate, but as y'all know, revenue bills must originate in the House. There's a few tricks that you can do. You can do a floor substitute or a committee substitute in the Senate, but that bill needs to start in the House because it's going to have to go back to the House to get final approval. Representative Emory Donahue in Gainesville has already got a bill being drafted, and we're going to work on it over the summer, and I would definitely be one of the co-sponsors on the Senate side, and I hope to even carry it if given the chance. I'm on the Finance Committee. I work hard with Chairman Judson Hill on that. He and I both are a strong advocate for the fair tax, so I look forward to that opportunity in January if you put me back in the state Senate seat. Thank you.
Okay, and John Williamson?
The fair tax has a great appeal to some of us. But one has to be a little bit careful. Now, I was talking about, you see, when you talk about tax reform, one of the things you have to look at is, are they revenue neutral, okay? And when you reform taxes, you've got to also, as the speaker said earlier today, have some control over spending. Because if you have just a fair tax, flat tax, whatever, and the legislature spends more money, they're going to raise that tax percentage to get the revenue. So one has to be very careful when one evaluates tax proposals. Now, from what I understand, the fair tax would add a sales tax to our existing sales taxes that we charge locally. And they tell me that it would only add 1.5%. So in other words, if your total sales tax in your county was 7% with 4% state and a couple of SPLOST, that it would be 8.5%. So the question is 8.5% sales tax, is that acceptable to the public, especially when you're looking at the neighboring states that may have a lower tax? So those are the issues. It certainly is very attractive, and we certainly do need tax reform. I think we have to do this very carefully, but if you ask me clearly, I would work for it, certainly. But do you think the odds of a fair tax getting through any place is going to work? It can in Georgia, if we talk about Georgia, and I think that's what we were probably talking about, is the fair tax for Georgia. But we got to be very careful that we don't put ourselves in a non-competitive position. So the bottom line is that yes, the fair tax looks like a very good way of equitable taxing, as long as it's revenue neutral, and as long as we have a cap on spending, it would be a very good option. Thank you.
Time for one or two direct questions directly from the audience?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, if...
Does anybody have a direct question they'd like to ask? Well, then I'll go ahead and ask one.
is it about fiscal policy?
Yeah, we're going to move on to fiscal policy.
Okay.
I would like to know what you would say is either your greatest legislative accomplishment or what you would hope your greatest legislative accomplishment would be for your legacy if you are elected to serve.
Okay, so 2 minutes, Senator Gooch.
I'll answer both. I believe what we did with the transportation bill last year is probably going to do more good for this state, for economic development and for safety of our roads and bridges in our rural community areas than anything that's been done in the last 30 years. The gas tax has been assessed as a sales tax for the last 30 or 40 years, and it's a system that's not working. And we fixed it. Maybe it's not perfect. It can be tweaked. It can be changed in the future. It can be amended. But I think what you're going to see here locally and around North Georgia is that roads are finally going to be worked on. Bridges are going to be taken care of. Your local governments are getting more money this year. We doubled the amount of money that the county normally gets already in 2016. Don't believe me, ask the chairman in the back of the room. He can tell you. It's real. It's going to work. And you're going to see in 3 or 4 years that these results are coming to local counties in small areas. Secondly, we are committed in the state senate to lower the income tax next year. I can read off a list of sales tax and other cuts that we've made across the state in the last 6 years. We want to reduce the income tax. We want to eliminate the income tax. The fair tax is the way to do it. You have to broaden the tax base. You have to get rid of a lot of exemptions to do it, but it can be done, and we have the will in the Senate to do that. So those are 2 things. One that we did already, and the other one that I plan to work on next year. Thank you.
John Williamson?
When I think about that, since I have no legacy in the legislature yet, does legacy mean you have to die first? Anyways, thinking about that here a bit. The legacy that I'd like to leave is transparency in government. We get a lot of baloney thrown at us, okay? And it's useful to dig deep and see what really is going on. And you can look at me and say, you know, you don't like roads and bridges, and gosh, John, you're anti-everything. Well, that's not true. But I want to evaluate the value of what we are doing and why we're doing it. And that would be my legacy of transparency. And an example would be, I got to share this with you. The commissioner of the DOT was quoted in saying in 2010, that's only basically 5 years ago, he said that he was sitting in an audience in Missouri, and the transportation official from Missouri told the audience how they're trying to improve their roads, mentioning that they measure themselves against a certain state from the south. And he looked up there, and that certain state was outlined, and it was Georgia. Now, this is 10 years ago, all right? And the Georgia GOT officials have quoted in 2010, in some cases they are bragging that we have the best road system in the United States, all right? So we put that in perspective, and then you do another research about the quality of roads in Georgia and bridges, all right? We keep hearing that there's a crisis, so I looked and did a little research in the evaluation of the Georgia roads, and it turns out that we aren't, well, I thought that we'd be down around 49th out of 50th with this crisis that we've got. Well, it turns out we're only 13th in overall. We're first in the quality of rural interstates. Our bridges, the ones that are going to fall down under the school buses that we keep hearing about, we're ranked 16th. And the problem is, the 39th, we are 39th, which is last, and that's in GOT overhead and administration. So I leave you with that. I want to give you transparency. This is the sort of thing that I'd like to bring to the attention of our constituents so we can make real decisions. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just go to the closing statements then. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to wrap up and talk about why they deserve your vote. So first, Senator Gooch.
We could probably spend another hour talking about transportation because it's what I know best in the state Senate. I was the chairman of transportation for 2 years. I'm now the majority whip. I'm in the leadership position. I think I'm in a position to help our community the best. Regardless of who wins, I'm going to continue to love my community. I'm going to raise my family here. I have 3 boys in the public schools. I'm going to do everything I can to provide them a place to work and to live. And if they want to live here the rest of their life, that would be great, because I'm going to be buried here in Lumpkin County. We talked a lot about taxes tonight. We talked a lot about taxes earlier today in Union County. Let me close with this. We have a conservative Senate. I'm ranked the 2nd most conservative in the state Senate for the 6 years I've been there. American Conservatives Union has me listed. You can look it up on their website. In the 6 years that I've been there, we've repealed the marriage penalty, we've repealed the death tax in Georgia, we've repealed the state property tax. You no longer get a property tax on your tax bill for the state. Used to, you got a $250,000 income from the properties all over the state. We no longer have that. Anybody in here 65 years of age or older, you're now tax exempt for Georgia income tax on the first $130,000 of your income. A lot of people don't even know that. They have other people doing their tax returns for them. We got rid of that. We got rid of the birthday tax in Georgia. When you go to the courthouse and get your tag today, you pay $20 for that decal. 2 years ago, you had to pay $300, $400, $500, up to $1,000, depending on the value of your vehicle. You no longer have the birthday tax. We eliminated it. We capped income tax for the rest of Georgians at 6%. You did that in a constitutional amendment on a referendum 2 years ago. We passed that in the Senate and the House. We passed another referendum this year in the Senate, didn't make it out of the House, that would lower the income tax in Georgia by 0.5% as we continue to grow and put money into the rainy day fund. We give the money back to the taxpayers of Georgia. That's where it belongs. And let me talk about shrinking government, right-sizing government. When I got in office in 2011, I made a promise that we would implement zero-based budgeting. I did it when I was a sole commissioner. We cut the budget in Lumpkin County, and now we've cut it in the state of Georgia. We've reduced the size of government. When I took office in 2011 in the Senate, there were 70,200 employees. Today, there's 58,000 state employees. We've reduced 13,300 full-time state positions. So we've cut taxes and we've cut government. I ask for your vote May 24th, and I'll continue to work hard for you. Thank you.
John Williamson, final 2 minutes.
I really want to work for the constituents and the citizens up here in the 51st District. And to do that, I need to know what their problems are. And then again, I reiterate again, we are concerned about right to life. We are concerned about our education system, and we have a lot of these concerns, and I certainly can address those as well as anybody. But the overriding issue that we have, and the reason that I'm running, is this unbridled taxing. It's amazing when you can say that you've cut the state property tax. Do you know how much that is? Have you looked at you probably never looked at your tax bill and saw that it was 1/10 of a mil, which amounts to about $10 on your tax bill for a year. So, okay, we've cut $10 taxes. Very good. Thank you very much. Of course, over here, we've raised the taxes close to $1 billion. But we've giving you $10 over here. That'll be your first 100 gallons of gasoline with a new tax. So this is the issue. It's credibility in government. Are our dollars being spent? Are we being represented properly? Is there a lobbyist? Is there money being funneled to our representatives in large amounts, such as a $300,000 lobbying fund that our senator has? I mean, this is the question: are we getting what we paid for? Are we getting what the representation is that we would want? And my point is that I can do that. I want to give you transparency. I want to represent you. I'm sort of like Donald Trump in only one respect, and that is I'm self-funded. It's not on purpose, but I am. And so I'm not obligated to any of the lobbyists that we see that seem to be running amok in Atlanta. So I'm here. I'm volunteering to give you a choice. If you make me your choice, I will be a strong voice in Atlanta for you in this district. So I do ask for your vote on May 24th. Thank you.